Stoned Over a Couple of Drinks presents The Regulars. We're reviewing a fantastic film called It. I have a full cast today. Holy shit. As always, I am your host, Bill. With me is my my partner in crime in Westeros, Jess. Say hi, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
Ah, fuck. And we have the Angel of Death himself, Eric Roman.
Greetings.
And a hurricane survivor, Eric Sprott.
We have two hurricane survivors. Don't be sexist, Bill.
No, Jess gets a better title.
Partner in crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Westeros partner in crime. Well, fine, Sprott. Then you get my my gunslinger. My gunslinger.
That's
Eric's
I'm not your dick, Bill.
No, you're my gunslinger.
Like I said, I'm not your dick, Bill.
So we're talking about...
yeah.
What?
I said I'm uncomfortable, so continue on.
Drink.
Ooh.
This is over a couple of drinks.
If an Eric is uncomfortable, we drink.
Yeah, that's what we're doing now.
Oh, shit.
Right.
Here we go.
That's like 50. I think I needed to grab the other bottle of wine.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go grab the rum here.
Hold up, my shorts are kind of bunching. I'm a little uncomfortable.
We're talking about probably the most well-known Stephen King story of all time. It.
Carrie.
Shit.
The Shine.
Misery?
Shawshank Redemption?
No, the
Or
other
Past
one.
Midnight.
The other one.
Green Mile?
No, the other. What's the one with the car?
Christine.
Yeah, that one.
Buick 8?
Oh, yeah. Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon.
No,
Oh,
guys,
that's a great
We're
one.
talking about The Stand tonight.
Ooh.
Oh.
Gary Sinise is a national treasure.
Just gonna...
Well, doesn't the turtle show up in The Stand at some point? I can't remember how it crosses over.
I'll tell you when I read it.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm still in the beginning of that book because it's really long. Speaking about long
yeah.
books, It.
It.
It?
Segue.
It.
I'm good at this.
Pronouns.
So, New Line. Is it New Line? It was New Line?
It is New Line.
New Line
It is New
decided
Line.
to put out a remake of It. And we all went to go see it. Some of us survived hurricanes to go see it.
I had to drive an hour to go see it. I know.
I didn't have to drive that far.
I had
Well
sold-out
done, you,
showings.
Sprott.
I had sold-out showings is what I had to deal with. So here's our spoiler-free review of It. Jess, spoiler-free, what did you think of It?
I thought it was phenomenal and the best horror movie I've seen in a very long time. In this generation, I should say.
Roman, since I have two Erics, spoiler-free, what did you think of It?
I would say that for an actual R-rated horror movie, which we haven't had one, Jesus, in a long time because they've all been PG-13, it was hands down one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. And for a remake, that's saying a lot.
Sproticus.
I went into it knowing it was going to be a good Stephen King movie, a good horror movie, but I walked out of it knowing it was a great movie. No genre spanning. It was funny. It was terrifying. It was gruesome. And I want to see it again. Phenomenal movie.
Absolutely.
I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, about halfway through, I thought to myself, and one of the dull moments was when I wasn't grabbing my seat like my life depended on it, was I think this is probably the best horror film I've ever seen in theaters. Because I don't count in 2004 when I went to go see the director's cut of Alien, because I watched it a billion times before that, and I didn't get the chance to see The Thing in theaters. So It is probably the greatest horror film I've ever seen in theaters. I don't know. I don't have anything that tops it.
Come to think of it, not since the re-release of the director's cut of The Exorcist have I enjoyed a movie in the theater that is a horror movie. With maybe the exception versus Jason, but that's a whole other ball of wax.
That's a something else. But
Yeah.
And the thing was, I think part of it was I had an amazing collaboration of people there in the theater. We had basically a midnight showing, not at midnight. And during the garage scene, which we'll get into later after we're done with our spoiler free, I felt the building move. It got everybody, and it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there you go, spoiler free. Go see this film. Stop watching us. Go now. Stop. Just
Yep.
Now. Go now.
Because like a bunch of eggs, we're about to spoil.
go. Yep. In 3, 2, 1. Spoilers! Everybody dies. No, that's not even.
That's a bad
Is this a
spoiler.
Maya Jones D&D campaign?
Yeah, it is. Actually, with her and I, we break people's fingers off and make lockpicks out of that.
I think I was there for that one.
You probably
I'm pretty
were.
sure I was.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
epic.
That was pretty good. Anyways, who wants to start with what?
Ladies first.
Oh, I don't.
No? Okay.
Where?
So, first thing off the bat, this one just focuses straight on the kids, which I thought was a very smart move. Every change they made in this one, I thought, served the purpose to tell a better movie.
I totally agree.
That doesn't mean I like every change they made. There was a couple that I was like, here and there, but I thought that it served and told a better story for the masses than anything else.
The one flaw I see in that is the change from Mike to Ben. I understand
Yeah.
why they did it.
Yes.
Yeah, Bill and I were just talking about that yesterday.
Yep.
I understand why they gave it to Ben. It fit his character, it fit the story, it fit what they were doing with him, but it left Mike
Without anything.
with,
Kind
without
of like a
anything.
tertiary kind of, we're just going to stick him on. 'cause
Yeah,
he
it
was
was
in the book.
unfortunate because he was one of my favorites from the book. I loved Mike's story in the book,
And
and
I
I
feel
hope
like-
they flesh that out more in the second movie.
I feel like, if anything, what they should have done was given part of it to Ben to make Ben a better character, other than just being the fat kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make sense for him to be in the library all the time, so he would research it. But then, when Mike joins the group, they have a bonding moment to make these characters stronger, saying, "Oh yeah, I did the research too. Do you know about this? Do you know about this? Oh, I have research on." Like, it would take like 2 minutes for them to
Or
do that.
even Mike
And
would
it would
have
build
had
the
the
relationships.
It would build a
Mike would have had the oral history.
Yeah.
Mike
Right.
says, "My grandfather said this. His grandfather, something happened to him. So on since the beginning. They've been around since the beginning. Every one of them has these stories about this clown." 30
See
seconds.
what I understand why they had to flesh Ben out a little more, because they took away the dam scene in the Barrens from him.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the Barrens a bit more when we get to it, but
We can get into that right now, because one thing I really, really liked was the changing of Bill
yeah.
to not just being out for revenge, but this hopeful, inspiring thing of maybe Georgie is still alive. And it cuts the Barrens down from their play place to a area to investigate. And it still was underused, but again, I thought it was okay since it was pushing the story along.
My only issue with that, and I agree with the fact that, yeah, they were, Jesus, how do you turn a 2,000-page novel into a 2.5-hour screenplay and then split it up into 2 movies? But for me, the Barrens was always the 8th member of the Losers Club.
Yes.
Because it was their refuge, it was the place where they always gathered their power and their strength from. And, some of the scenes that they cut, like the ritual of Chud and Ben seeing the clown in the canal for the first time and things like that, particularly the dam scene, because for me that was always kind of showed this other side of Ben, the character. Yeah, he was the chubby kid, but he also had this, and they allude to this in the book a lot. Bill was the storyteller. He had the power of story. Ben was the architect. He just innately knew how to build and construct things. Mike was the historian. He was always drawn to that, and so I felt like that element was kind of pulled out of the story a little bit for the movie.
They took a little bit of that out there, and
Yeah.
and like with I didn't expect the ritual of Chud to make it. I really didn't.
I kept hoping, but
Too esoteric for the
Yeah.
movie.
It was. I'm glad they did, in the simple sense that it kept the movie as a horror film, straightforward as can be, and it didn't jump into the cosmic horror that they're saying they're going to go full on into. They're doing it nonstop. They're going to go all the way.
For
I hope
real?
so.
Like the turtle and...
They said
It's
came
going
from
to be a really
space.
harsh transition, I
it's
think.
going to be a harsh transition.
Yeah.
For people coming back.
Yeah.
Well, they already have this established world
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
It's easier to
I don't
jump
know.
into that. Well, everybody knew part 2 was going to be a hard sell anyways. It deals with a lot of weird shit.
Yeah, it really does. And in the 90s miniseries, that's always the weaker part of
Yeah.
the film for me, is when they jump to the adults. Not only because of the actors that they chose, like I cannot look at the older Richard Tozier and not think Night Court.
Yeah.
You know, no offense to what's his face, but
I don't remember his name.
and then the guy, you know, John Boy from the Waltons playing Stuttering Bill, and but did that light bulb just go on? That light bulb just went on for you, and I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with the sequel, because bottom line, the kids that they picked were amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were
fantastic.
solid actors. I can't remember his name from
Wolfhead? Finn Wolfhead from Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. Thank you. I mean, that was a perfect fit. I swear to God, Stranger Things was written by some brainchild of Stephen King, so that made sense to me.
Well-
And
Well,
We were
Well, and
talking-
I almost feel like Stranger Things was sort of a primer to get people ready for
Well,
this.
something like this, yeah.
For something like this.
The guys who made Stranger Things wanted to do it.
Mhm.
They were turned down, so they said, screw it, we'll make our own and we'll call it Stranger Things.
Yep.
So that's why there's so much similarities there, and that's kind of cool why Finn Wolfhead was in
That's
both of
cool.
them. And
yeah.
his Richie was perfect.
Great.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. The fact
so
that they
much
moved
laughter. Yeah.
the fact that they moved it from the 1950s to the 1980s. I thought that was going to bother me at first, but then I bought into the whole millennial nostalgia part of it that they were going for.
Yeah.
And the fact that it allowed the kids to be more three-dimensional, I feel like, because, you know, you think the 50s, gee, Willikers, yippee skippy, you know, their conversations with each other, Richie, the entire movie, talking about his dick and having sex with your mom, and that's how kids talk.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I work at a high school. This is how these little shitheads talk. But,
Can't believe I drew the short straw. Too bad we weren't measuring dicks.
yeah, right. As you looked at, we were measuring dicks. But I can see why they kind of had to pull it more modern, and it made sense. It made sense to me.
It was seamless to me. I didn't even trigger to me that it should have been the 50s till afterward
Right.
that I was thinking about it. And wait a second, that wasn't right, but it was seamless, absolutely
Yep.
seamless.
It works too in the grander scheme of Pennywise too, because like he woke up in like what 85. You know, you bump it forward a few years,
Right.
it's fine, and then it sets it up for the sequel to be pretty much modern day,
Right.
Yeah.
and it
Which
works.
has to be the reason why they did this.
Really,
Mhm.
really.
But it worked. Again, it was one of those things that they did. They updated, they refreshed, and it didn't affect the quality of the movie for me.
And
At all.
It also got them around some sticky situations, like them having to get the rights to say the Wolfman or the creature from the Black Lagoon or Frankenstein's monster, and I thought they did. I was hoping they would do more with it, especially since it was New Line and they had that little Easter egg of Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street 5 that I actually thought Pennywise was going to show up as Freddy for like a hot second, and I was like, that would be kind of cheesy. I hope they don't do it, but I kind of want to see Rupert Englund show up in the makeup again. Just
Apparently they wanted to, but the filmmaker felt like it would be too much.
I
Two on the nose.
Yeah, well, too much and reaching too far for that 80s
He's-
nostalgia.
And this day and age, Freddy's not horror anymore. He's
No.
not scary. He's been bastardized too much. He's a caricature now.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I'm glad that they didn't go with any of the classic monsters of any site, other than the zombies, which worked for me because it would be the 80s
The-
where it was like Night of the Living Dead and you know all them and like, oh, he's probably afraid of this kid who thinks he's a hard ass in the movie. I know he's a hard ass from the book, but like in the movie he thinks he's a hard ass, but he probably watched one too many zombie films and that was his trigger in. But everything
Yeah.
else was like a leper, a clown.
They
the
did
painting.
tease the werewolf and
They
the
did.
mummy,
The
though.
hand.
I love.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love.
And
that
the mummy.
tease.
Where was the mummy?
When Ben at the end gets grabbed by Pennywise and gets his head wrapped,
Turns to mummy.
It's The Mummy.
Oh yeah.
Oh
It
yeah.
was really good. I really okay. If we're gonna talk about the ending,
Oh yeah.
Look at
couple of things right now from that ending. One,
Jessica broke.
Jess is back. Say hi.
Hello, hi. I'm sorry, my
No.
internet.
It's fine. It's fine. We're gonna start talking about some more stuff because Jess hasn't read the book, but she just started and she was giving a great spiel about it off camera. Go.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I was off camera. I just started the book today, and it's not putting me off that you guys are talking about the book because, like, I find it absolutely fascinating. And as I said, I started the book today with the hope that I will finish the book in the next week or so. I've got a friend that really wants to see it, but she's on tour for 2 weeks. And so then I can go back and get a fresh perspective on it, and it'll be like a whole new, and I'll understand a little bit more of the elements that are left out. And I'm intrigued by the adult story
Yeah.
that was left out of it.
Mhm.
If we're
Have you
talk-
read much Stephen King, Jessica?
Here and there, like I've read like The Shining and Doctor Sleep, and there's a couple of like other different things in there. I
Okay.
haven't delved into like The Tower
Start
or
the tower.
I know,
Start the
Bill.
tower.
I've been trying. I've started the Gunslinger like 3 times, and then it's so hard for me to get into it. Like I'll
Get
go
it on
back.
tape. Get Audible. Get the books on tape. The guy
Yeah.
who does it is phenomenal. I'm doing a second time through right now, just
Ooh.
listening,
Okay.
and it's very very good. And
Okay.
it'll make it a lot easier because it's not an easy one.
It's not for
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
and that's what I love about it. Okay, back to
Anyway.
the movie. If we're talking about the ending, I really enjoyed the final fight between the kids. There were some things I would have liked to have panned out a little differently. I guess there's some things I'd like that I would have pieced together in my mind that I would have liked in the movie. I don't know if you guys had these thoughts either, where in the book you get the idea that Pennywise has, just because calling him it is too hard, Pennywise has like put the town under a trance, and you get that a lot with them, with the adults not paying attention. I would have liked that played up a little bit better, because
Yeah.
I wanted the scene where Eddie goes off on his mom, and she
Yeah.
has that line, "It's not safe," for Eddie to put 2 and 2 together and go, "What do you mean it's not safe? What do you know?" And like her kind of like, I don't know," and he's like, "You know it's out there. You knew it was out there," and kind of like have that idea that his mom, had to deal with Pennywise when she was younger.
When she was younger, yeah.
I think that would have been like a nice little nod that wouldn't have taken much more, but it would have been something nice. And the other thing would have been like, I really wanted the other bullies to get their comeuppance in the sewer, and I would have liked to have that back with the idea of Pennywise wanting to take out the losers, but he's getting close to his time being done. So he needs to eat quickly to take them out because they're too strong. So he lures the bullies into the sewer and kills them. Because again, I really want them to always get their comeuppance. It didn't happen that way, and that's fine. Those are the things I would have added. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
Do you
I
think Henry
think-
died?
No, he can't.
See, they left that really ambiguous, but he can't have died because
He's
in the
necessary.
book, Pennywise recruits him later to track down the adult losers.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very key element
Mm-hmm.
to the adult side of the story is that Henry comes back
Yeah. So I
after
don't think he's
spending
dead. I think he's
20
just gonna
years
be-
at Juniper Hill.
Yeah, he's just going to be, coming out of the hospital or something like that.
But I will say, by that token, not fleshing out Belch Huggins' character, because Pennywise appears to Henry as Belch
Yeah.
to get him to kill the security guard, to get him. Belch's actually Victor's corpse drives the car. So I feel like them glossing over the other bullies.
It kind of might hurt them. In the
I
end.
agree with Bill. It was kind of a letdown. Plus, they missed out on a couple really good death scenes.
Yeah, that's my point. Like these guys should have been with him. They could have had them all in the sewer chasing the losers instead of fighting in the house,
Yep.
and then just Pennywise picking them off to kind of get his strength back for the end finale. Which, don't get me wrong, I liked the end finale. I didn't mind that they didn't use the silver. I liked the idea as every time he faced one of the new losers, their fear manifested in front of them.
Yeah.
Instead of the giant spider.
Mm-hmm.
Which, though, don't get me wrong, it showed the arms of the giant spider when he was attacking Mike, and I geeked all out over the theater. I was like, "Oh!"
There it is.
As well as the deadlights. Them
When-
Yeah.
showing
They
the
alluded.
deadlights.
They didn't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
What about when he attacked him with the cattle gun? The
the
it's
bolt
not
gun?
loaded. It's the bolt gun.
Yeah.
It's not loaded. It's not loaded. That wasn't explained at all, but that's exactly how it happened. Where
But see,
was
that
it
kind of
the
plays.
aspirator that he
Yeah.
used? The aspirator wasn't
Mhm.
loaded, but he believed it was. It didn't matter.
It didn't
Yeah.
matter.
And I
because-
didn't think about that until afterward because, Eddie attacks him with the aspirator and says, "This is battery acid, asshole."
Yeah, yeah.
And it was his belief in the fact that it was battery acid that made it battery acid.
Yeah.
hmm
So it was Mike's belief, or
That the
was
gun
it
was-
Beverly?
Bill's.
Bill's belief that the
Bill's
gun was
belief.
loaded.
Yeah, that it was loaded, and it was.
These are all subtle things that if you knew the story,
Oh,
you
it
picked
was. It was amazing that they had such little tiny nods throughout this story. It wasn't overt. It didn't detract from the story. You could know nothing about the subtle nods, and it made perfect sense. But it was the fist against the post, the
The Lego
the
turtle.
gun, the Lego,
Lego turtle.
The Lego turtle
Yeah.
breaking for
Yep.
Pennywise to show up. That
Yep.
was huge. I was like, and my friend was like, "What?" I'm like, "It's the turtle. It's the turtle. He's safe if he holds the turtle and he breaks." And my friend goes, "Uh oh," and I go, "Uh oh, is it right?"
Another little one is the fact that Victor Chris, Patrick Hochstetter, when he dies, is wearing the "I Love Dairy" shirt,
Yep. Which
like
is-
the balloons.
like the balloons, and like
Yeah.
Adrian Mellon's stupid paper hat.
Mhm.
At the very beginning, when they pull him out of the canal, he's wearing the "I Love Dairy" hat. So I thought that was a pretty cool nod to that whole thing.
And there was another. There's so many.
There's so many tiny little details in there, but I want to go back real quick to the thing about
Because we're all over the place.
how the adults. There are essentially no adults in this movie.
hmm
And, it
And
worked.
to me, that was the whole thing. The adults, and they talk about this in the book and the other miniseries, the adults can't see the things that Pennywise is doing.
Right.
They're oblivious to Pennywise. So the fact that it kind of eliminated the adults as characters or pared them down enough that it really was the kids all on their own facing this horror was kind of a really cool device for me.
I feel like the way that they use the adults that were there, like Bev's dad and
Ugh.
the one guy's
Oh.
mom, who's the hypochondriac,
Germaphobe.
Eddie's mom.
Eddie.
Yeah. I think it made using those parents as a this is why these children fear. I feel like that device was stronger by limiting what adults were actually in the film itself. It drew a stronger attention. You know from the beginning the way that they're painting Bev's dad. Where that is going. But
Instantly.
it's not so clear with Eddie's mom at first.
Right.
And then, when it gets into it, and then they start talking about these are placebo effects, these aren't real, then you're like, oh, this is why he's a germaphobe. It's not because he's sick, it's because this is what his mother has put into his head, and this is what he fears.
Jess, you pronounced it wrong. It's gazebo.
A gazebo. I laughed really hard in the movie theater when he said, "It's a gazebo," and I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Gazebo! I attacked the gazebo. Loved it. Loved it.
It was great. It was what fascinates me about this movie is that even though I haven't seen the books, it seems like everything that meant something intentionally meant something, and you didn't have to go digging for it.
Right.
You guys have a much deeper perspective of it, having a stronger familiarity with Stephen King novels as a whole, but also knowing the book or seeing the miniseries from the 90s, which I also haven't seen that. I wanted to go into this fresh.
It hasn't held up well, so don't worry about it.
I'm still going to see it. But I felt like you either had to you had to do those two things before you saw this movie, or you had to deliberately do it after. And I wanted to deliberately. I love going back and seeing what was left out.
See, the thing going off of that I enjoy about this is that I have noticed since I've been working at the high school, a lot more kids have been checking the book out of the library now.
Oh.
And that, to me, like
It's
with the
awesome.
Harry Potter phenomenon,
Mhm.
working backward from the popularity of the movie is getting kids to read the actual book again.
Right.
So I feel like this is going to cause another one of those phenomena where, hey, I've seen the movie, I know it's a book,
Let's read
maybe
the
I
book.
should read that. Yeah,
Well,
let's read
and
it.
I think the combination of doing that and then like releasing Dark Tower, like the movie, and then it in like such
Mhm.
short proximity, I think it's going to reignite everybody's interest back into Stephen King.
I hope so.
Can we talk about the clown in the room?
Let's do.
I am so happy that I'm going to eat crow here, because for the longest time I was like, he looks terrible, he looks awful, this isn't going to work.
And then he started drooling.
And then he
His
was,
voice.
he
His
was-
voice. It was
The voice,
oh my
deep
God.
and
So
smile.
squeaky.
he was so
And
charming
it
with
just
Georgie.
fluctuated.
Pop,
And
pop, 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 pop. And I'm like, run away, Georgie. Jesus Christ, run away.
that
away.
fucking scene with Georgie.
the intro.
like,
Did you have
the
any
intro.
idea, Jessica?
Well,
Did you have
I
any clue
did,
what was going to
because
happen?
I went to go see Hitman's Bodyguard, and they showed. I was telling Bill about it like a couple days ago. Like they actually showed that whole scene of Georgie running down the street and the boat going in,
Mhm.
and like Pennywise being down there, but they didn't show what happened to Georgie. They cut away,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I'm like, I know he dies.
But you
Just
didn't know
don't
how.
how. So when I saw it, I'm like, ah! Like there's,
Oh, God.
I learned during this movie that like I used to scream in horror movies and like
Mhm.
scare and jump, and then I found that now I just like start going like this, and then
There's a
all
girl
of a
behind me
sudden,
hyperventilating.
all of a sudden I realize how ridiculous I look, so I start laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm that asshole in the movie theater laughing at all the scary parts, but like genuinely like terrified,
Mm-hmm.
like absolutely terrified.
I am so glad he didn't try to do a Tim Curry impression. He made
Right.
Oh, yeah.
his own. And the other thing, I knew about this going in, but as I was watching it, I started to appreciate it more of how much Pennywise's stuff is just done in front of a camera. There's no real trickery. It's just him
him.
standing there.
It's
How
him.
tall is
He-
that actor in real life?
He's like 6'6", 6'7".
freaking huge.
Skarsgård
And
boys.
he could twist
Yeah.
his hands. He could move his legs. A lot of that was him. The eye thing, that was him.
Yeah.
That's
He has a lazy eye, and he relaxed his eye to make him go cockeyed for this.
No way.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
His limbs and stuff, he was doing most. I mean, not coming out of the fridge, but
but-
most of the stuff is like the twisty limbs and things. That's entirely him.
The whole like contortion jerky movement like phenomena that's like come up like that is a constant in horror. Like that's something that like really gets under my skin, and the fact that it was brought up so many times in different, like not just with Pennywise, but oh my god, that refrigerator scene. And I'm just
I
like,
know, just the.
I'm just feel like I'm gonna go
Yeah.
sit in the corner and sob because I'm terrified of what my nightmares are going to do with this.
Mhm.
6'3" and a quarter according to his IMDb profile.
Really?
Yeah.
I just
Real tall, but I guess
He
it
seems
was
taller,
a child
yeah.
cast.
I
Yeah.
loved everything he did, from his range of goofy to absolutely demonic. So those
And within
scenes,
a second span,
Split
just
second,
switching
yeah.
back and forth.
and the scenes where like they still used slightly prosthetics of like his teeth coming out of it before the CG took over was just utterly the garage scene is one of the in particular where all of a sudden it just jerts out. I'm just like, oh god, make it stop.
There's still images of him with those extra teeth that not
Yeah.
moving, just still images that are terrifying looking.
Yeah.
Because it's just this close to being human that it gets under your skin.
It's that it's that extra level of like this is what it looked like before and now
Mhm.
bleh. You're like no, don't yawn. Like
and everyone who has asked me if I've seen it is like, is it just jump scare heavy? And I was like, 9 out of 10 of the jump scares that happen, but then the scene doesn't stop. Then you're just forced with Pennywise sitting there, or just standing in front of you, about to deliver some speech or something, where it's just dread.
Interlaced
roller-
with being incredibly uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like you're
Well,
like,
It's dread and uncomfortable.
Like that
Dread.
split second of hang time before you go over the hill,
Yeah.
the first hill on a roller coaster.
yep.
The tickle
They
belly.
would do the jump scare,
right there.
and then there's Pennywise staring at you. You're like, oh god,
I don't
Oh,
want
God.
this
You don't know what to
anymore.
do.
Oh, God.
Because normally it cuts away.
It's not over. It's not
Yeah.
over.
not over.
And it's
We get release, and we didn't get release in this. The only
Right.
release was a
No.
scene later when we got to laugh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the perfect example is Eddie running into the leopard guy at the house
Yeah.
for the first time.
Oh.
They gets the jump scare of him barely getting away, and it just
Uh-huh.
turns around, and you get that scene with Pennywise with all the balloons, and you're like,
Mhm.
I don't like this anymore. Please cut away, please.
And what was the one where he was eating the arm?
Oh, and he just waves.
Eating the arm.
And
Oh,
he's waving
God.
the
Oh.
arm and just blood everywhere. Where
There
the
were
fuck
so
did that
many-
come from?
There's so
Broad
many times I
daylight.
was just like sitting there and I'm like, nope, 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 nope,
Nope.
nope, 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 nope,
Nope.
nope, nope. And I'm like, why didn't I wear enough clothes to hide? I'm so scared right now.
Can we talk about that moment that Stan goes into the clown funeral parlor for?
That was Richie. That was Richie.
Richie.
Or Richie, excuse me.
Richie
Richie.
has
Beep, beep.
Richie
has
has the best
coulrophobia.
the best response ever for going into a room full of clowns, which is, oh fuck.
Oh, fuck. Whole room full of nightmare material.
But
That's
to his
another one of
credit,
those scenes.
he tests it. He's like, oh, this is nothing. They
Right.
appears there, and then they start moving, and
Mhm.
Richie
And-
fucked.
And they had a great little cameo to Tim Curry's
Pennywise,
clown,
Tim Curry's clown.
Mhm.
Yep.
which was nice. Just again, this movie, it was all these moments where everything was played in frame, or the jump scares didn't cut away right away, and I was just like, yeah, this is a movie we're going to talk about 10, 15 years down the line, where you go,
Yeah.
this is a great movie. This is
That
this
was
is a staple of
incredible.
a
Like
movie.
it sets the bar so high. Like there's not going to be another horror movie like this.
Much
I
the
like-
way that Deadpool kind of redefined the superhero genre, because they turned Logan into a rated R movie finally, and we got the Wolverine movie that it's not the Wolverine movie that we want, but it's the Wolverine movie that we deserved.
Right?
I feel like this is going to set a new bar for like the James Wans who have been writing Annabelle and the Insidious franchise, which I can't believe they're doing a fifth one because I'm over it. But now this movie has said it's okay to make an R-rated horror movie again.
It's
and have
okay to murder children.
It's okay to murder children. It's okay to have kids dropping the F-bomb. It's okay to be scared again. And I feel like, there have been a handful of decent horror movies that have come out over the last couple of years. Don't Breathe.
The original Insidious
The original Insidious.
was actually like
the original Conjuring.
scary. The original Conjuring. It's just
The Witch.
what they're doing.
It Follows.
The Witch.
Babadook.
It follows.
The Babadook.
They're just watering down their brand by continuing with all these sequels,
Right.
which is one of the things that I appreciate about this is that
It's too,
yes, they're making a second one, but
Mhm.
it's not a sequel.
No.
It's
the
a
story.
Yeah, it's
continuation
continuing.
of the
Yeah.
same story. And if they just knew how to do that better, that would be a little fucking great.
But because
Well, something I said to Bill a couple days ago is that I don't like jump scares. I find them cheap.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll jump.
It's overused.
And I know it's coming. Even
Yeah.
if I don't know it's coming and it gets me, I don't enjoy it. It's not what I look forward to. I like atmospheric horror. I like where I feel a sense of dread coming on. I like when I don't know what's going to happen. Like a great example I give is Signs. The movie, the ending sucked. Everybody knows that, but it gave this sense of just glimpses of dread, of feeling of foreboding coming over you. But it did jump scares like I've never seen before, and it gave me. I knew they were coming. I saw them come. You could watch the bad guy coming down the stairs. He wasn't going to jump out at you, the headless guy. He wasn't going to jump out at you. You knew he was coming right at you. You knew he was going to run at you. You knew he was going to follow you down the hall. And I was terrified the entire time it was coming at me.
well,
And I knew the kid was going to get away because I knew the story. But
You were
it
still
was
scared.
just yeah, it was a
But-
feeling of anticipation that was present through the whole movie. That was just not like anything I'd seen in years.
Okay,
And
so
kind of riffing off of that just for a sec.
yeah, go ahead. I'll
Knowing the
right.
story as well as I have, reading the book as many times as I have, seeing the miniseries as time as I have, I went into this movie going, all right, it's a remake. Am I going to be bored because I already know the story? They did this movie in such a way that, yes, it deviated from the source, but it stayed so faithful to the source at the same time that I wasn't bored, and none of the scares seemed predictable to me.
Yeah,
And
not
that's
a
something
single one.
that's something I really want to give the filmmakers, the fact that this is a very well-known story to millions of people who flocked to their televisions in 1990 to watch the It miniseries and who have read the book so many times. You know, how do you take something that is so familiar and put a fresh spin on it? And they did it so well. And to me, that speaks volumes about the writing, the acting, and the whole package.
The
Right.
garage
So-
scene is such an
Yeah.
example of that,
yeah.
though.
Oh.
Because it did it a second time. That
Mhm.
second scare, nobody was expecting, and it got our entire theater.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to what you were saying earlier about stuff, but we'll get to it. But I want to cover the garage scene because the garage scene is probably the greatest because it's all in the trailers, and you know just the idea of the projector going off like that and doing it, that was intense enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as Stan stood next to where it was, and I was like, oh, that's a dumb move, and I'm
Yeah.
going to the
No,
back-
get out
and
of
I'm
there.
going, I'm going to the back of my head right now going, does Stan die here? Let me check. Did he makes it through? We're okay. Oh God! And like he does the teeth, and then this is the perfect example of the jump scare happened,
Mm-hmm.
and then the scene continues, and it keeps coming at you because
It
then
was
the teeth start to
unrelenting.
come out, and then the hand comes out, and now he's 50 feet big in a garage, and you're going, dear God, someone get out! Get out now!
You're like, let me out of this fucking garage.
Right.
As you're sitting in the movie theater.
Yeah, and I'm just like, after that scene I went, this is probably the greatest horror film in like the last 20 years to actually scare people. Like, you know, what is that? Get Out. Nothing against Get Out or Don't Breathe or any of those other films where it's just like, no, they're good horror films. Maybe more suspense than horror, but this is uncomfortableness and dread and scares.
These are all the emotions that people who enjoy horror films like myself enjoy experiencing
Yes.
and have like vastly been deprived of, like, as a whole. You'll experience these things one at a time, but to have the full
Yeah.
experience just of it, layering it on top, like one on top of the other, you're just like, this is everything I've ever wanted, and I'm also gonna poop my pants. Like,
And then the
And I
next
would
scene,
relate that back. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, and then the next scene, they have you laughing so hard that you're choking
Yeah.
on your
Yes.
soda
Right.
just to keep
Yeah.
you emotionally unstable.
yeah.
You don't know
And to give
Yes,
you
sir.
a release as well, because if you amp up the
Too
entire
much.
movie,
You can't do
then it's not going
And
to
you're
mean anything.
just
You're going
too
to be numb by the
uncomfortable,
end.
too, while
Yeah.
And see, that's why I liken it to the horror movies that have genuinely scared me. I look at The Exorcist, for example. I mean, that movie is a slow burn, and then it gives you these really intense moments, and then it cuts away to something so quiet that you're like, what the fuck just happened? Same with Alien.
Yep.
A slow burn, it builds the tension, gives you that release, and then cuts to something immediately that makes you go, wait, I'm not finished processing what I just saw. What?
The best example is in Alien would be the Dallas scene when he's crawling through the vents. It's nothing but suspense of them following the motion tracker and Lambert fucking her job up. God damn you, Lambert. And then you get a jump scare. And then the very next scene is Parker dropping Dallas's flamethrower going, it was just standing there. And you're just like, excuse me, where's Dallas? Someone tell me where the fuck Dallas is. I liked
Or-
Dallas. He was the captain. He was supposed to live.
To go back to my favorite horror movie, The Exorcist, the most jarring scene in the movie to me is still the one where Reagan is violating herself with a crucifix.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is a disgusting, emotionally powerful moment in the movie, and then it ends, and Chris is standing on a bridge. It's dead quiet and talking to a priest, but you're still sitting there going,
I didn't want to see that.
And that garage scene, it ended, and then it switched over, and you're just like... The girl behind me, literally, I think I had to, like, her mom gave her a paper bag or something because she was hyperventilating so hard. And like you said earlier, Bill, the entire audience was feeling this movie, which hasn't
They were
happened,
committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
hasn't happened in a theater for a long-ass time.
Yeah. And it's like, this movie could have been just another scary clown movie.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
could have been a huge letdown. But I don't know how they did it. Is it just amazing actors or well script or what? And on top
It
of
was
that,
a lot of things,
This,
though.
this movie had everything lined up to be a shit show.
It really did.
You had a movie dependent on child actors, which have been known to be meh at best. You had a remake of a classic Tim Curry part that everybody loves. Doesn't matter if this miniseries didn't hold up or not. Everyone loves Tim Curry in that part. You have the director. This is his second film. His second film. And you have Creepy Clowns, which were kind of all over the place, and now everyone's over it. And it pulls everything off with almost as close to flying colors as I could be. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm here.
Yeah. It's like... Go ahead, Sprat.
No, I was just saying, can we talk about the cinematography a little bit on this?
Yeah.
Because, good God,
Totally.
I didn't expect artistic vision in a movie like this. The reflections, the angles where the kid, you felt like you were a child when
Yeah.
all these monsters were coming at you. You were minuscule.
Mhm.
And the way they used the sunlight, the way they used the water, I was blown away by it.
Yeah.
And even the score, the orchestral score, I don't know what it was, but I'm a very musical guy. And from the very beginning, when the mother was playing the piano, it had me. Because it set this tone, and the dreary rain, like I could almost smell that wet pavement. And I haven't had all of my senses engaged like that in a movie at the theater. I mean, it's been... trying to think the last movie that had me like that in the theater. It's been a hot minute. But there were so many things. It was... and I don't know if it was because... I mean, the screenwriter and the director... Since it was only his second feature, maybe it's because he's not as jaded as some of the other big-time directors are. Or maybe it's because he had...
Ridley Scott, fuck
Right,
you.
Ridley Scott. Or maybe it's because he had such an appreciation for the source material. I don't know what it was. I don't know. It's...
So much of this film was such a huge love letter on
Mhm.
so many standards of like, we're doing it this way, we're doing it this way, we're doing this, and it worked. And there's even subtle imagery that I really loved, which is like Bill going down in the basement and seeing Georgie, and Georgie literally turning into a meat puppet for Pennywise.
Right? Right?
Oh,
That
the
was
hand up.
terrifying.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well done on whoever thought that one through. Way to go.
Yeah.
I'm
And the kid who
Would
played
be
Georgie, too.
absolutely
The,
Oh my
the
God.
casting of Georgie.
He was
the
great.
wide eyes, the innocence,
Oh my
the
God,
voice
you just
that went
wanted
along
to
with it.
hug him.
Well, and that was so important, was they established, without overdoing it, they established that relationship between Bill and Georgie in that one tiny little 5-minute scene. I bought that Bill was head over heels in love with this kid as his brother. And
Yeah.
they had a cool brother-brother relationship, and that when Georgie died, it really fucked Bill up.
With parents that are non-existent.
It
Right.
fucked
Dad,
this. It
who-
fucked this Bill up. Okay, Georgie's storyline always fucks me up. As a brother, I have an older brother and a younger sister, and now as a dad, I went home and just was like, "Hi, Bobby, you're having nightmares. Let me hold you till 4 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning. I don't mind. I'll be tired, but I love
Yeah.
you, and never go near storm drains.
Yeah.
Ever. I will
I'm
make
never
Turtles
building
don't
you
get
a
down there.
boat.
I will make you another fucking boat. It's a piece of paper. God damn
All
it,
right,
Georgie.
so
Oh, okay. So, I want to talk about this real quick. I don't know if you guys read any of the negative comments about this, but I just like poking holes in it because I'm like, you guys are going a little too into it. One of them said, "This isn't a movie; it's just scenes showing fear and dread, cutting to another scene showing fear and dread." And the only point I got that is in the very, very beginning when they're setting up each kid's what they're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do you realize you're in a Stephen King movie where it's all about the characters?
Yeah. This is a
See, what I
character
think-
movie.
Do you know what you walked your ass into today? Like,
Yeah.
I think that people have forgotten in the society that we live in, where we're so inundated by images of our fucking world collapsing around us every day, that people have forgotten what genuinely used to frighten children.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I loved that Stan was afraid of a creepy-ass picture.
yeah.
I mean, it's simple little things like that in the 1980s, for those children, I didn't know what the Cold War was when I was a kid because we didn't have 24-hour news media.
Right.
We weren't fully aware of the impact of the AIDS epidemic until the early 90s because it was just kind of coming about in 88 and 89. But kids had less visceral things to be afraid of. And I think that argument that Bill was reading is that coming from somebody who's obviously very jaded, who's just like, oh yeah, horror movies. Meanwhile, South Korea is going to bomb us tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. Or North Korea, whatever, the Koreas.
We're grouping them together. Fine.
The Hampton Koreas.
Yeah.
The Hampton Koreas. It takes us back to a simpler, more basic fear that children should have today, instead of the fears that we're ingrained with because of the world we live in.
Right.
And that plays into exactly what Pennywise and It is doing, because it focuses on children because they have the more direct connection to what fear is. They see a picture and they're afraid of the picture. It's not, I'm afraid of paying my bills on time because I might lose my house. And that's why, I mean, I always thought that it could prey on adults if it came down to it. And so adults died a lot of times. There's a long history in Derry of adults dying. But he would have to work a lot harder for that. It wasn't an easy picking. Like, hey, here's a leper. Here's a headless guy.
Oh,
and
hey, you're showing my life as a teenage werewolf. You're afraid of werewolves. I can do that, no problem.
Yeah,
you know?
no problem.
And this leads into it because in the book there's a part where Pennywise actually starts writing. He takes control of the book and tells a little bit about himself. And one of the complaints I read on another site was, I would have been afraid of the jump scares if the music tones didn't cue them before the jump scare happened. And I was like, so you're being upset. I mean, how many horror movies have you seen? I don't know about you, but I knew when jump scares are going to happen just from tempo. You know, I know, oh, here comes a jump scare. But
and I really don't feel like it was that clear in this one either, because even though I talked to you yesterday or 2 days ago, like the day before I saw it, and you brought that up in conversation that there were musical cues for it, I was so immersed in the movie that, like, at first I was like, oh, I should try and listen for those. And then I threw that idea out the window because, like...
You're there.
You're there. And it's like, yeah, I can hear that there's a musical, and it almost, like, put me on more edge because I'm like, there's music here, what's going to happen?
That's my
point.
point.
But, like, there wasn't, like, on the flip side of that, I wasn't, like, I would have never noticed, like, oh, every time this music comes, it means I'm gonna get scared. Mostly because the ambiance of the whole movie, like, was set up so well. Like, it was
because it wasn't just the sounds that were happening.
Yeah.
It was where the camera was used. It was how the kids were talking. It was who was involved.
Right.
It wasn't just one thing saying, "Hey, time to get scared."
You could
was
smell that wet basement.
yeah.
But, like,
right.
My point is, even if there is a musical cue, that's like the book when Pennywise takes over writing. That's a little meta. So when the cue starts in, who's not to say that's Pennywise getting a little meta, saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm coming." And even then, like, knowing tempo, I'm like, oh god, here comes a jump scare, and you can't do anything to stop it. And again, what hit me so hard was...
Well, you could walk out of the movie theater.
Well, I'm not going to walk out. I paid money for this.
Yeah.
But I was enjoying
Kind
it.
of like
I was enjoying it, and
the Joss Whedon horror movie.
Cabin in the
Cabin in the
Woods?
Yeah, I love that.
fucking love
That
that
it
movie.
turned it on the audience, saying, "You know what? Yeah, you're going to be scared, and you're feeding me."
Mhm.
This is all part of the process.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like, it's like, okay, here comes a music cue, but I'm going still off a tempo going, here comes a jump scare. I can't go anywhere because
Right.
I'm in the middle of the packed theater. I don't want to see this jump scare. And then on top of that, the jump scares don't cut like they normally do. They don't
No.
Right.
cut to the next scene. So after one jump scare of happening like that, I'm going, oh God, here
You
comes
still
another
can't
one.
exhale, really. Like,
Oh God,
Yeah.
here comes another one. And instead
And you're
of just-
captive.
yeah, and then it's like, who says that's not Pennywise doing that? Or the other major complaint, I hate this one the most, is he didn't have any rules. Pennywise didn't have rules. Like, Freddy Krueger can only attack you in your dreams. I'm like, that's the point.
It's because Pennywise wasn't the fucking villain.
Pennywise, well, that's the point of Pennywise. He can get you anywhere.
Anytime,
And-
anywhere.
And over years of training himself, he only wants to eat people who are scared because it tastes so good. And so when Bev wasn't afraid of him anymore, yeah, he could still kill her,
But he didn't.
He didn't really want
but it's
to.
gonna taste like a raw potato, and he doesn't want to eat a raw potato. He wants to eat steak.
Hmm.
He wants steak.
It felt like for me that Pennywise, like, because it felt like it was more of, and this is me with like my fresh mind with it, but like it didn't seem like Pennywise was the one that was supposed to scare you. He was just the clown. It's everything. It was the encompassment of fear as a whole, and Pennywise was the embodiment that sometimes occasionally was a clown. Like, and I know that's kind of
that's-
like lofty and meta and everything like that,
That's what
but
it
like
is.
that's the way that it read for me,
The further
or
you get into the
I
book,
more or less, right.
the further you get into the book, you realize that he doesn't. He's maybe a clown
Like 2 or 3 scenes.
2 or 3 times.
Right.
The reason why the clown is so prevalent is from the 90s miniseries, because they couldn't keep putting Tim Curry in different stuff, and they hired a big name star like that to do it. They're going to use it as much as they can.
Right.
And he was.
And I get that, but even not getting into the book, that is something that seemed clear to me. It didn't seem like, not digging on the movie at all, it seemed like this was intentional. But it didn't seem like it was like, there's this killer clown stomping around, killing people. Like, it's not... It wasn't. It didn't feel like that was what the threat was.
Well, again, if
No, it wasn't. You're right, though. It wasn't the clown, and that you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The
It's
true
fear.
horror of it. The true horror of it for me was always the fact that here's these 7 kids, who, you know, when you're on that brink of adolescence, you're still looking for the adults to guide you through the scary times, and the adults aren't there. So, to me, the true horror of it was the fact that the scary part of it is the fact that they had to help themselves. And what 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old has the wherewithal to actually help themselves?
Well, it's like what you said earlier, like the idea of kids in the 80s being afraid of stuff. You know, there were times during the day where when I was younger, my imagination would just run wild, and I would start to freak myself out at like noon because I could
Yeah.
do that. And that's what it is. You want to know what the
Without a
rules-
cell phone.
Yeah, you know what the rules are for it/Pennywise? There are none. It doesn't have a weakness other than you being stronger than it mentally.
Yep.
You have to get over your fear. Fear is always there. So it's like someone goes, well, what's the rules? And I'm like, get out. Just leave the theater now. You just go. You can't lock them in water like Jason. You can't wake up like Freddy. Just leave. So it just, I wanted to poke some of those complaints apart, because it's like it was these people who were like really digging in and finding reasons to hate it, that I was just like, stop it. You're ruining it.
You really
for everybody.
have to. You really, like, I thought about it for the day after I saw it, and I really had to pick to find things I didn't like about it.
Most of mine were like, oh, they changed this in the movie, or oh, Henry didn't have a
Yeah.
bigger part in the movie, or
Yeah.
oh, this wasn't there. And I was like, no, it played like a really good horror film, kids versus a monster. It didn't shy away from anything. It went full forward. Yeah, everyone did the stupid, let's follow this creepy thing for no reason. Stop it. But at the same time, I wanted to yell at the screen. I wanted to be that guy because I was like, don't do it, Richie. Don't be dumb. God damn it, Richie. God damn it, Richie. I expected out of Eddie, but not
Richie.
you. Beep, Richie.
I'm glad they threw that in there, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was good.
Okay, real quick before we go, I want you guys to think about it. Your favorite line in the movie. If you need to think about it, I got mine.
Oh my god.
Okay? My
I
favorite,
never remember lines.
My favorite line in the entire movie is at the very end when Pennywise has Bill. Oh, we never talked about how great Bill Stutter was. Bill Stutter was amazing.
I wasn't taken out of the movie by it.
He was
That's something that I was concerned about because when you put a child actor in a film who doesn't necessarily have the chops of a seasoned actor and you give them a speech impediment, you never know how it's going to work out.
great.
I just accepted it. I didn't have to think about it for the rest
Right.
of the movie.
Okay, so when Pennywise has Bill and he says, I'm going to kill all you or I'll just kill him. And everyone turns and everyone's like, what are we going to do? And Richie just goes, God damn it, Bill, I told you this was going to happen. I knew you were going to fucking die down here. You drag me through, you punch me in the face, you make me walk through shitty water, you drag me through a fucking crack house, and you're just like, I'm seeing the setup, I'm going to happen. And he just reaches over and pulls a baseball bat and it's like, now I'm going to have to beat the fuck out of a clown. And I'm like, best line.
God, I loved it.
It's a
That was
toss-up for me between when Richie walks into that room of clowns and just goes, oh, fuck. Or Pennywise's very last line before he drops down that well. He looks at all the kids and just says, fear. And
Jazz?
I'm not good with lines. I'm not good with lines at all. I laughed really hard at that gazebo line. It's a gazebo. But I think that I was just I'll probably come back and have a favorite line the next time that I see it. But I was too immersed.
Spartacus?
I'm going to cop out and say that it was just how natural all the kids' lines were. And that we touched on this earlier, but that it felt like kids.
Mhm.
I mean, every interaction was just. I saw my friends Joe and Adam
Oh, yeah.
and I growing up. This was us. We were little shitheads.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There was one that was more of a shithead. There was one that was less of a shithead. But we were all just little shitheads at some point.
What was the line?
and then-
Virgins only see this shit? Is that why I'm not seeing it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. The only real criticism I have about the movie, if we can circle around about that,
Yeah.
is that Bev was a damsel in distress at the end.
Yeah.
I didn't like that because Bev was the heroine in the original.
Yeah.
I mean, they all were heroes to some extent, but Bev was the
She
crack
was the
shot.
one that shot. Yeah.
Bev was
Yeah.
the strong martial character.
Well,
like
and
she
to be
was
fair,
the one
she
that
was
was
the one
the
who
fighter.
she was the one who brought all the boys back
Mm-hmm.
in her own special way.
Yeah.
Not talking
But-
about that scene. Moving on.
No. But yeah, they kind of, yeah.
I wanted Bev to be more of the fighter that
Mhm.
she was in the books. That she really rallied the troops at the gravel pit, if I remember right.
Yeah, she did.
Mhm.
She was the one that had the slingshot.
Mhm.
I wanted to see that. It felt like half the time Bev was this real strong character, and the other half the time she was the one they were trying to save.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it needed that.
I didn't think it needed that. It was a good motivation for get the guys down there in like that true 80s
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of way. But I would have liked to seen her turn the tables a little bit harder on Pennywise, the more so than she did because again he turns into the head of her dad and it's like, I already kicked you in the balls, I don't care about you anymore kind of thing. And it could have been a bigger moment for her to kind of redeem that whole, oh, I'm a damsel in distress, I'm not really in distress, guys, I'm good, you know. But I mean, she had that kind of way. I'm not justifying it, you're absolutely right, I'm just saying, like, when it took her, she wasn't afraid of it anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
And that was kind of super powerful because he had to do the deadlights to put her in a trance. And that showed me right there, he could kill her. He could eat her. But he's been trained so far that fear tastes so good. He's addicted to it. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And he's just like, oh, damn. And I was like, yeah, that's right. You go, Bev. You go. So let's do our reviews real quick. Funny fact, Eric already wrote, Roman wrote one. I'm going to post a link below to his Facebook one about a full and detailed thing, what he thought about it. So you're going to get the easy one out of 5, Roman. What would you rate it?
4.5 out of 5.
Perfect. Sproticus, you have a grade system.
A grade system.
Yeah.
All right. I give it a solid, very solid double Z.
Double Z. Where's that one?
Oh, you don't know double Z?
No, I don't.
Oh, did you go to public school?
Yeah, I went to public school. Is that like check plus plus or a star?
No, it's A minus.
A minus.
Anyway.
Jess, you have a percentage.
Like Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm gonna go with like a 96%. Solid 96%.
And I give the nonsensical one, so I give it a turtle out of 10 because fuck yeah, turtle. I think we can all highly recommend to see this film. Go, please.
Absolutely. If you're not convinced after you've watched all of this video.
Yeah.
What are we, an hour and a half?
Hour
2
and
hours?
yeah. If you don't see it in theaters, rent it and watch it alone, please. It's either you see it in theaters and you get an awesome audience with you, or you see it in theaters all by yourself, which might be more terrifying, or you watch it alone with the lights off, and when you turn the lights on, you quit because you're a sissy.
Yeah, or watch it alone by yourself, like midday when they're still outside. Like
That doesn't help them in the movie.
It doesn't help.
it doesn't help them in the
He's
movie.
coming no matter what.
That's
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on tonight. And this will be up shortly.
Woohoo!
Say bye.
Bye.
Deuces.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.